There was a druid in Laurentia, the neighboring kingdom to Alador, that has been swallowed by the Shadow Deep. Prior to the Shadow Deep's rise and Laurentia's collapse into the darkness, literal collapse as the earth of Laurentia somehow fell 100 to 200 feet, as if there was a pocket of air under the bedrock of the kingdom and the land fell in, there was a beautiful woman who practiced the druidic arts, incantations, and magic. She would partake of psychedelic plants to better commune with nature. She weaved spells to communicate with and aid the flora and fauna. She believed in the natural order of things, the unseen algorithm of earth and wind, water and fire. She communed with the storm. She coaxed green from the desecrated battlegrounds left over from her kingdom's wars, cleansed the land of blood and the wraiths of misery. She knew something evil was coming. She felt the giant fissures in the bedrock forming. She was warned of the imminent collapse by her legions of fungi and beetles and burrowing spiders. She tried to convey this warning to the people of her realm. She was spurned and scoffed at. She was called Wood Witch and Swamp Bitch and Hag. Children were taught to fear her, to run from the herald of nature's trembling cry. She forsook her people and wandered the hills and hollows, the deep glens and shallow ponds, and kept the animals as company beneath the moonbeams and mists. She tried to augur what was coming. She spoke with the mushrooms and the birds and the feral beasts of fur, and became all the more feral herself, impotent with rage at the humans who ignored her. And when the Shadow Deep came, clouding the skies and forests and lakes and streams, crushing the towns and the villages and the cities, waking the dead and fouling the earth, our druid hardly resisted. Instead of standing forlorn against the tidal wave of darkness, she dove into its depths, inhaled it, fed it her veins and her vision, and it spoke to her in whispers of spiderwebs on the rising mists. She consumed the fouled earth and came to relish the decay, and she dreamed swamp-ridden dreams of crushing those who thought themselves strong enough or bold enough to stem the tides of shadow and death. And the Shadow Deep showed her things, affronts to nature that her old self would have recoiled from, but her new self found delightful. The raising of the dead, the puppeteering of life into that which has fallen silent and still, and the strange command of wicked plants and rabid beasts driven insane by the psychic vibrations riding the black deep's smoke. And now, Beldeth the Branch Witch, our corrupted druid, hunts the living and wants nothing more than to dash their dreams of sunlight and hope against the charred rocks and crawling hate of the Shadow Deep. You know, I'm kind of burying my soul here when I'm just putting, like, raw stream of consciousness nonsense up here without, like, any sort of editing or thought space. And we're just going with it. This is how it works. Making stuff up, that's what we do. Just making stuff up. Greetings, good humans, and welcome to Tabletop Alchemy, where sometimes we try out a new format for the videos. And we, oh, that's my phone. I have to have it close because I am expecting a call for something not related to what we're talking about today. Because I'm a true professional and I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm not feeling frazzled or nervous or anything at all today. I'm just hanging out. But we also thank our patrons for hanging out. God dang it. Yes. And for putting up with phone chirps and things like that, and offering their support. And I've gotten quite a bit of support in the last from the last video from both patrons and you guys, and I thank you guys very much for all of that, all of your well wishes and everything. And this is never going to stop. I just sent some concept art to my DP for the Rangers of Shadow Deep movie. And obviously there's no script. Well, it's not obvious, I suppose. There's no script in front of me. My computer monitor's here. I'm going to start recording that in a minute while we do what we're going to do today. I tried this setup once before. I can't snap with that hand. Oh, I forgot. It's going to come off this side anyway. I did try this setup once before with the camera here, and yeah, anyway, we're going to work on something today on the computer. Oh my gosh. All right, I'll just turn it off. But we're going to write some stuff on the desktop, so that's why we're here, so we can do this particular bit here. I just want to do it with you guys. As I said, we're gonna be doing some. This is gonna be all a bunch of movie production stuff, probably a lot of development stuff, not actual film production stuff. It's film development. I mean, I suppose I should say. I mean, obviously, one of the first things we should start with is the story. We need a story if we're gonna shoot a movie. I mean, there are some movies out there that might argue that point, but yeah, I want to start with a story, and of course, I want to start with you know. Got my notebook here where I've taken some notes and stuff I've jotted down, but of course I've got my Rangers of Shadow Deep, you know, the rule book. There's a lot of content for Rangers, but I think I'm going to limit us in the film production, at least for this initial film or series, whatever it ends up being. We're going to stick to the main book. I don't know, there's just things like I thought progression could be cool for sequels, things of that nature. Who knows? That's all pie in the sky stuff, but it'll be there, you know. So there's other archetypes, soldier archetypes, and or companion archetypes, and spells and heroic abilities that get added through some of the other supplements. I think I'm gonna stick with the core rule book, and specifically this Modifius version, which is sort of just a reprint of the original rule book. It might have some extra content in there, but you know, so for stuff like that, it gives me some parameters to work with the writer on and the production, and we kind of can have a singular item that we're approaching, and you know, everything can expand after that or whatever. I always reserve the right to, you know, do whatever I think feels best for the film. Of course, it's my job. If I'm directing, that's my job. Try to make the best thing possible. We'll make the best of it. We'll see how it goes. I mean, at some point, right, stuff in life is just going and everything. You're just surfing. You're surfing the waves of life. You're trying not to crash and burn. That's all I'm trying to do right now, is not crash and burn. So, got my coffee in my mug that I got at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival. Some beer would be good, but it's too early in the morning for that. We're just gonna kind of go. We're just gonna go stream of consciousness. That's kind of, you know, how I work a little bit. I do have some notes here. What we're gonna do is, I just realized that I'm gonna be typing and stuff, which is probably going to shake the camera because the camera's on the same surface as the... Anyway, I am apparently ADHD today. A couple days from now, I have a conference call set up between myself, my screenwriting buddy, and one of my producing partners, and we're gonna... This will be the first time that we're gonna talk about the story and everything. So I've worked with this writer before. He's awesome. Basically, we're gonna go over some things right now that I'm gonna tell the writer at the beginning of the meeting, so that I can get us all on the same page with the stuff that I want to get across on screen. I don't have the whole story at all developed, but we're gonna start with the characters, because that's how you start. Well, that should be how you start any story, but that's how you start the warband. So basically, we're going to build ourselves a warband for Rangers of Shadow Deep, on paper anyway. I'm going to follow the rules, essentially, for building a ranger and a warband, and yeah. Okay, so what do we got here? So let's start with this. Let's start with the title for our document: Rangers Story Prep. Let's have a few things in the notebook that I want to incorporate. I guess I can put this here so I can read a little better. And this is the very first thing I wrote down in my notebook, which you can see right there. The very first thing I wrote down in this brand new notebook for Rangers of Shadow Deep is the sentence, "Snakes for breakfast." And of course, you're going to get, now there's going to be typing noises while I talk, which is probably ridiculous. I should just record this all separately, maybe. I don't know. I don't have the time to do separate videos. But talking over typing might be really crappy for you guys. And if it is, I apologize. How do you like your snake? Crispy. very crispy. That's actually a line from Joe himself when we were just messing around, but it made me laugh. There's some other notes here. Poisoned water, nature, corruption, corrupted nature in the Shadow Deep. Okay, so how about this? Themes I want to explore. I have some themes that I want to talk about, or that I want to be in the film. At least initially, these are just my initial ideas for themes I want to explore, put in there. Obviously, we can't put in 50 themes, even though I might have a list of a bunch. But these are some of the big ones that I'd like to bake into or explore through the characters and the story. Evil isn't always ugly, but is always deceitful. Something like that. I know how I want to open the film. Again, this might be spoilers or it might not be, because who knows at this stage what of this is going to change, if anything. Or everything might change. This is literally day one of writing these notes down for story. So everything is fluid, right? Anything and everything could change at any time. We'll see how it goes here. I do think there's going to be specifically a Blade Runner style opening, screen crawl. I say Blade Runner because I mean, you could say Star Wars, you could say whatever. There's going to be an opening blurb, right? But Blade Runner's the thing that occurred to me, and I want to keep it short. I don't want it to be like a Star Wars thing where it's fairly long. Although it may not be any longer than a Blade Runner thing, I don't know. There's going to have to be some blurb that comes up on screen that just explains to the audience what the situation is that we are watching a story happen within. Because we don't have time to like explain the backstory of or shoot scenes that explain the backstory of what the entire, like, what are the kingdoms, like, all this stuff, and how did the Shadow Deep start, or where it came, what it's done. We have to just get that up in a couple lines to just give us the setting, that, and then we can go into it and we'll kind of know, it's just like the Blade Runner opening, which just sort of gives you an idea of like this is the world, this is the state of things, and then we're into the story. The way I want to open this movie is a cold open, so that it would be before this text comes up on screen. We want to do a cold open. Let me just write this out. I can't write this out and talk it through at the same time. So I just have this idea that we're going to cold open on this frantic action scene where these people are literally in the middle of fleeing for their lives from something horrible behind them in the dark, whatever. I don't know how that scene's going to map out or anything. This is just a general gist of things. And our lead character is the sole survivor of this sequence. And we find out when we start the movie proper that she was just an archer, a companion in another ranger's, I guess we would just say war band. So that brings me to this other thing here, this next little bit. I'm going to be all over the place, guys. I'm sorry. This is just how this is going to work. Just free flow, but we got to put these ideas down. Another thing I need to give across to the writer is, so we're doing PG-13, fantasy, horror, military. We'll put that in quotes. Military. So that's for so the writer. So the writer, producer. We all, so that we could start. We know what we're dealing with. We know what our parameters are. And Rangers of Shadow Deep does lean pretty heavily into the horror genre, which I think is super awesome. But I did discuss this with Joe, we do kind of want to hit a PG-13 rating. I mean, I initially was thinking for Silver Bayonet, if I was to do that as a movie, I would just go, that's straight rated R fantasy horror. This, though, PG-13 is probably a better call. It allows you to have a wider audience, and yeah, kids can play this game. It's cool. We're not making this movie for kids necessarily, or it's certainly not for 12 or 10-year-olds, right? Yeah, we want PG-13 fantasy horror. I looked up some PG-13 horror movies just to see like what was in that genre, and for that rating, there's some pretty creepy stuff out there. So I think we can get away with stuff. There's a lot of ideas here that I'm gonna go through, but we're gonna get to building the warband in just a second. But we do want to make our villain. We want to try to make the villain a solid character on their own. You know, when you deal with an IP, something that exists already, right? Everyone's gonna have their own idea of what they want to see. What story do they want to see in a movie? And I have to sort of build a mental defensive castle walls around some of my intentions, because I cannot cater to, I mean, nobody can cater to every fan's, you know, desires, right? I know there's going to be a lot of, you know, I run the risk constantly, and this is where some of this agitation comes from, and that makes me a little hesitant to even do this sort of thing on video and stuff, but I want to overcome that and just do it. I still think it's interesting and fun, but the basic gist of what we're doing for this movie, you know, if we just want to say it up in one line, it's like, yeah, a group of rangers, or a ranger and their companions, a war band, goes off into the Shadow Deep and fights evil things, trying to save humanity. I mean, that's all it is, right? That's the essential breakdown of the game. And so within that, we can set up our own story, and that could, of course, be literally infinitely... There's an infinite number of choices that we could go with. So I've been riffing on this idea that my art director, friend of mine, sort of threw out just sort of casually, and I was like, that's actually a really cool idea. So for the villain, so they got to be a solid character on their own. And why are they a solid character, not like just a monster thing? They are going to be kind of a monster thing, but the villain is a corrupted druid. Yeah. Stereotypically, a druid is a nature wizard, to put it in very, very minimalistic terms, right? They love the earth and Gaia and life force and everything about the animals and plants and everything, right? And what is the Shadow Deep doing? The Shadow Deep is corrupting everything and ruining everything, right? So it's corrupting nature. And so I think there's this character who... There's a lot of people that got caught in the Shadow Deep and didn't make it out of there. And so the Shadow Deep is making use of whatever it can get its magical claws into. That's an allegory or a metaphor, not a physical like claws into it. There's some kind of, you know, what is the term, Cthulhu-esque or something, or right? Is there another word for that? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. There's something sort of Cthulhu-esque in nature about the Shadow Deep, right? It's this unknown thing that is like taking over the world. And so what if we had this druid who was, you know, got trapped? It was just not, you know, was in her realm, you know, doing her thing, and the Shadow Deep just collapsed on her and brought down all this gnarliness, and it sort of corrupted her thoughts and everything. And so now she uses the corrupted nature within the Shadow Deep to do her thing. So she's got to have a mission of her own, right? Like she has to have some goals of her own that she's trying to do. And of course the Shadow Deep's main goal is to take over the world, right? It's the nothing. It wants to eat everything. So she is now just a vessel of the Shadow Deep. As a druid, you know, she has imbibed maybe a lot of psychedelics, or, you know, we're never going to get away from the mushrooms, man. This is tabletop alchemy. Come on. But, you know, there's balance everywhere, right? There's good and bad everywhere. So, you know, maybe she's opened, the fact that she had opened some gateways in her mind and opened her mind's eye, her psychic eye, and into seeing some of reality. I mean, that it's the nature of doors. When you open a door, things can come in and things can go out, right? A doorway is two-way in nature, so you always have to be on guard, potentially, when you open doorways in your mind, right? You might want to go out that door, but who knows what might follow you back in. So that's, anyway, we're not going to get too much more to the corrupted druid. I have some concept art that I might get crap for this, of course. I don't know, but dude, at some point we got to be competitive with doing this on such a low budget. Which of course we don't even know what the budget is, but even what I'm envisioning is still whatever we get is going to be too low for what we want to do. It always is. But I'm an unknown director, so I'm not getting millions and millions of dollars to do this, right? But I did some AI art. I used Midjourney to generate some concept art just by punching in things like, you know, evil druid and different terms and whatever, and it came up with some pretty cool stuff. It's just an easy way to get some visual ideas because I got to communicate this stuff to other people visually. We could take a look at that stuff. Why not? We could take a look really quick. Let's see. This is all just about the feeling stuff. And this is very initial stages, man. I told you, day one. This is what we're doing. So this is all pretty cool, pretty neat. That's a weird feeling in that one. That's pretty sweet. That one, I really like that. That is pretty cool. Look at that. That's trippy, right? Have that coming after you in the dark and the shadow deep. Game over, man. Oh boy. Yeah, you know, that's kind of typical Midjourney art, but there are some cool details in there, like the way the branches look like spiders or whatever. That's pretty sweet. Trigger warning. There's arachnids coming. This is super cool. I hate spiders, but the look of this character with the weird roots and netting is awesome. I could see the Rangers going up against this figure in the Shadow Deep. That's pretty cool. This one's a little more, you know, stylized. We're not looking at the styles. We're not caring about that. It's just about the feelings we're getting. And there's some cool aspects here with the way that the outfit it's got moss and stuff on it, right? That's pretty trippy. That is pretty cool. The way that her hair is also branches and vines, which I think is exactly the route I want to go for visually setting up this character. This is pretty neat. Again, it's like that headdress. I really enjoy that sort of thing. That's pretty wild. The weird swamp witchy kind of look. I just like the alienness of this, and that's a weird idea for some outfit stuff, like almost like it's woven branches and whatever. I like the hair outfits, the makeup. It's not exactly right. It's just looking at feelings, right? We're just looking at feelings. We're trying to evoke something, and then we'll drill down on that as we go. I don't know what that is that her hair is made out of, but it looks like she's wearing the swamp, which is perfect. And yeah, I did a couple quick ones for Rangers too, just to see what it would come up with, just using very generic terms. And this is my favorite one. The forest is cool. The group, the cloaks going, right, the Rangers. This is pretty sweet. This is kind of like looking at the forest, because one of the things that is going to be sort of paramount to the whole production and the story and just everything is like, what does the Shadow Deep look like when they're in the Shadow Deep? And also, how do we make that on film or on camera, digital camera? That's going to be tough. With a low budget, it's going to be tough. I love this shot here. This is great with the... Anyway, there's a bunch of cool shots. I want the fact they could go waist deep in water. I just really want to do that shot. That would be so cool. And I like this one because of the greenish tint to the mist and stuff, and I think that might actually work really well. See, here we got the typical cinematic blue, but again, creepy forest. We don't have forests like this here in California. Another one with a greenish look and the water, which might be all poisonous because we wrote that down already. Anyway, so there's some very cool things here, right? Again, these are just initial concepts. I love this one here. The moon looks stupid. Looks like a CG moon. I'm just looking at the shapes of the silhouettes and like her clothing. It could be a guy, I don't know, but it's just the way the hat is, and there's something cool there. Something very cool. So, the lead character. I don't have a name. She was not an archer. She was not a ranger. She was an archer in another Rangers warband, and is the sole survivor from the opening. So, in the opening, she's probably running from the evil druid, or something related to that character, the villain character. She must recruit her own warband and return to the area in which she almost lost her life and saw her brothers and sisters in arms. Who's theirs? The MacGuffin, you fool! The MacGuffin! So there's like an artifact, which is from, you know, from Rangers of Shadowdeep, the book. I'm not going to use one of the artifacts that actually has been written about. We'll come up with our own. But there's an artifact. Probably what happened is this. Warband tracked down an artifact, found it in the clutches of the swamp druid. I don't know the name. That's it. Druid, tempted to secure it, and lost their lives in the process. Yeah, this is Shakespeare happening right before your eyes. It's not only possible, but probable that this archer, for lack of a better word, for lack of a name, this archer fled out of blank fear, and probably it could be revealed that while running on instinct for self-preservation, she left her ranger to die. She made a huge mistake that is really weighing on her. And she has never been a leader. She's never wanted to hold a leadership position. She has no confidence in herself as a leader. But she's going to have to get over that. Okay, so that's kind of the character I want to focus on. So this character's not young, middle-aged, experienced, somewhat, you know, she definitely experienced in Warcraft, but has a terrible fear of responsibility. That's really what her thing is. Fundamentally, she is terrified of responsibility. This is like a drunk person's video. Okay, the ranger has the following heroic abilities and spells. We're going to give her, I think, she's an archer, so we're going to base all this stuff off of her previous, her backstory, right? So she's got deadly shot, steady aim. She's like, Robin Hood. She's badass with a bow. That's the main thing, right? Which, of course, what does that mean in the movie? She's going to lose that bow at some point. And, right? She has Halt Undead, which I have an idea for how she has come across that spell. For actual spells, Halt Undead is a heroic ability, not a spell. Interesting. Okay, Enchanted Steel, but I'm going to tweak it. I'm going to tweak Enchanted Steel to work on her arrowheads, which I know that's not in the game. I understand. Now, I love this one here, Teleport, which, because it's essentially from D&D, it's Misty Step, right? And I think that's how we'll visually portray it. It's like Misty Step. So, Burning Light spell, which again is something I have an idea for how that might be used there. I have one too many here based on how we're going to spend her RP points, but I may just keep it and say she gained an extra 10 points because she obviously gained some XP coming back from at least that previous encounter during which she was the sole survivor. So I can give myself, I can give her an extra 10 recruitment points if I want to. Come on. So now the warband cast of characters. We're gonna have Barbarian. We have a Conjurer, which is 20 RP points plus 10, so she can have 3 spells. We're gonna have a Recruit. We're just going alphabetical order here for the archetypes. For the companions. Recruit is 10. That's basically a red shirt. We'll see. We have the Rogue. Of course, we gotta have a rogue character. We have a Swordsman and a Man-at-Arms. Obviously, it's a horror movie, so some of these characters are not gonna make it. And so I was almost thinking, and this would go outside, this would break the rules of the game mechanics of setting up your warband. But I was thinking I might actually do, possibly have 2 recruits recruits like brothers or cousins. More people to kill. And then, like, there's even the question of that we'll discuss is like, well, who amongst these characters actually survives by the end? So I haven't like fully finished out this war band. I mean, I haven't come up with names or, you know, all their skills and all that stuff. Because they get skills, man. I just love the stuff that's in the book, boy. Right? They got to worry about poison, disease, hunger, and thirst. There's just a lot of grim stuff in the Shadow Deep, right? Rangers begins with all his skills or her skills at +0. We're not essentially creating a ranger for this movie. We're not creating a ranger from scratch. Like, she's first level ranger. She is like first level ranger, but she's got some skills because she's already been off doing stuff in the war against the Shadow Deep, right? So let's give her some skills here. So we'll give her navigation, perception, stealth, survival. She's probably good at traps, finding traps, and I don't know about swim. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but she's probably good at that too. So okay, we'll give her those, and then we'll give her navigation as a +2. Like she put 2 skill points in there, which is not correct. It's not game correct. I know. And possibly stealth she's really good at. She's good at hiding because she doesn't like confrontation. As Joe says, when you play this game, or any of his games, you know, the rules are essentially heavy guidelines, but there's nothing stopping you from playing it the way you want to play it. So if you want to give your ranger an extra point in one skill and only choose 7 skills, why not? Nobody's going to arrest you for it. Just do your thing. Build the character the way you think your character should be built, right? Build it to their thing. Anyway, you know, so whatever. Just have fun. That's the thing about playing the game. Have fun, build it your way, do your thing that you like, that you enjoy. So, go build a character. Just have fun with it. Making a character that you like the background of, you know, and maybe focus on the flaws, because that's kind of that's the part that's going to make the character interesting, I think. At least, I don't know, maybe it's a way for you, just like me, to work your own stuff out through fiction. Because there's nothing in this character that's like me at all. Not at all. And thanks for hanging out. See you next week. With something. I don't know what. See ya.